There, Internet. Today on the Info Channel, we're going to be going over and discussing the latest of the Wrath of the Lich King news. Blizzard has been kind enough to release this announcement about 2 days ago, so let's go ahead and read it. With the launch of Wrath of the Lich King Classic repatch, we intend to open fresh start realms for players who wish to experience starting a new character and playing alongside a new community of others. In addition to fulfilling a request we've heard from players for a long time, we've expected there to be a lot of new Classic players joining us for the first time in Wrath of the Lich King, and some of them may be concerned that they feel behind. Fresh Start Realms should give those players a chance to feel as though they're on an evil playing field with everyone else. These realms will be Wrath of the Lich King Classic realms from day one, so when they launch, they will have all of the talent trees and player abilities coming with Wrath of the Lich King Classic, but all players will start new characters at level 1. Start Fresh realms will also have a few stipulations. For at least 90 days, you will not be allowed to boost a character to the Start Fresh realms. For at least 90 days, Fresh realms will not be available as destinations for character transfers, and Death Knights cannot be created on these realms without leveling a level 55 character on that same realm. All of the WoW Classic and Burning Crusade dungeons and zones will be unlocked and available on these realms. On all realms, Northrend will be locked until the official launch day of Wrath of the Lich King. As a reminder, this is one of the several steps we are taking over the next few months to prepare for Wrath Classic. PvE to PvP transfer restrictions are going to be removed. Wrath Classic closed beta test is going to happen. Classic era clone service is going to be retired. Existing realms are going to be consolidated. The new Fresh realms and Wrath Classic pre-patch, which is what we just talked about. And then, of course, the Wrath of the Lich King launch. Ultimately, we hope to see players spread out onto all available realms as the Wrath of the Lich King Classic approaches. For players looking for a chance at faction balance, we're hopeful that by starting fresh, they have a chance to stay balanced for a long time. For players looking for a chance to level up in dungeons, we hope the presence of other leveling players makes that more likely. We're excited about all of this, and we hope you're excited about it too. We'll see you in Azeroth. Now, I know there has been a couple concerns with the fresh realms and the restrictions that they're putting on these realms. So let's look at these two other posts that they've made since they've made this post before we go into the details. This is a post that they made about 9 hours ago, June 15th. Myself and other members of the team have been reading through a lot of the responses about the Fresh Start servers since it was announced, and the common feedback we've seen in concern over the idea of transfers opening after the servers have been live for 90 days. I felt it was important to chime in and highlight that the post specifically mentions they won't be available for at least 90 days, as in, at a minimum. The concept of opening Fresh Start realms in this way for Classic is somewhat a new territory for us. So in this situation, we believe it is very important to carefully monitor the population on these new realms, observe player behavior, and listen to the feedback on this topic. There is nothing to say that transfers will flip exactly on day 91, or day 191, or even day 991, and we don't intend to commit to an arbitrary timeline for transfers to become enabled super far ahead of time. We plan to be very thoughtful and deliberate when it comes to how and when we lift the restrictions around transfers on these realms. So to reiterate, 90 days is the absolute minimum amount of time we'd wait to open transfers, and we intend to listen to the feedback we get on this very carefully. If the realms are healthy and we don't feel the need to open transfers on these realms, we won't rush to do so. The team really wants to take care with anything we do here because of how excited many players are about the idea of being able to start fresh and have the idea to equal playing field experience in the Wrath of the Lich King Classic. We are excited about it too, and we really want to take our time and ensure that this experience is awesome as it can be. Thanks for reading, and I hope it does a little to ensure some concerns about this. As always, thank you so much for the comments and feedback. Now, this did clarify some things for us, but there's still some more concerns about the Death Knight, when they're going to release those restrictions, and what kind of restrictions those entail on the fresh servers, or even how much gold can you take once those restrictions are relieved when you bring over your new character. So let's move on to this third one that they answer some of those. And this is the third post today regarding the Classic Realms, about 3 hours and 9 minutes ago. I think Agren beat me to the punch on this in another thread, but yes, we intend to monitor these realms as they approach the 90-day mark and see if it makes sense to extend the restrictions for at least 90 days, meaning it could be longer. All three things, boosts, transfers, and DKs without a 55 will be restricted. After 90 days, we'll consider which of these restrictions could be extended and how for much longer. It might make sense to keep all of them up, or maybe only some of them. As a hypothetical example, we might get to 90 days and see that there are so many Death Knights that it no longer makes sense to require a level 55 Death Knight on these realms, and make them eligible for your first Death Knight without a level 55, while still preventing incoming transfers. Or we'll want to do the exact opposite. Our intent is to communicate that we realize allowing transfers, boosts, and decays too early defeats the point of these realms, and that we will only introduce them when we feel it makes sense. And lastly, to answer the question of why we'd ever want to allow transfers from old to fresh, consider you might have a friend who didn't roll fresh, and you might have a spot open on your roster that she could fill. Obviously, the point is to start on a leveling playing field, but gold inflates with each expansion, so it's certainly conceivable that the economy on these servers may start to match the others, and if they did, I'm not sure continuing the restrict transfers would be the right call at that point. As others have pointed out, there are gold limits on transfers, though it is also true that raw gold isn't the only form of transferable wealth. In short, our intent is to keep the restrictions for as long as it feels like it makes sense, and for the time being, we are willing to commit to a 90-day minimum. I hope that helps alleviate some concerns. I really appreciate all the thoughtful discussions in this thread. Now, how does this affect you? What did they clarify, and what did they lay to rest for us? Boosting wasn't addressed at all, besides them writing boosts in the first paragraph. This should be a huge concern if you're worried about the economy at all, as bots and gold farmers are just going to find a way to abuse the boost system one way or another. I really do hope they find a way to address that before the Wrath of Lich King servers come out. Next, what are some of the things that they laid to rest? Well, you're not going to be able to transfer before that 90-day mark. And we don't know when the transfers are going to ever be unlocked. We do know that they want people to be able to play with their friends, but they are worried about the transfer on how it's going to impact the economy, on what you're going to bring over, the amount of gold. All of those things are still unclear, but we do know it's not happening for at least 90 days. But that can change. Lastly, it seemed they didn't know if they wanted to or not, but it seems that they might open up level restrictions if there are enough DKs at max level, so that way more people can start off with their first character being a Death Knight at 55, instead of leveling a character they wouldn't want to 55 and then switching over to a Death Knight anyways. Personally, I think the fresh start's going to be a great idea. I'd love to start level 1, back at it again with all my buddies. That rush of the classic fresh start servers when that happened was amazing. The only downfall is going to be losing all those titles, mounts, and cosmetics that you've been working so hard to keep safe. It also could cause more of a divide between the players, as they're not going to want to give up all those things that they've been working hard to get. But I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below if you're going to be starting fresh or staying old. I'll see you next time.